Joining us now is CBS News legal analyst Jack Ford. We mentioned that civil suit off the top. We're learning about this morning that TMZ is reporting this was reportedly ready to go. It would have alleged assault, battery, and emotional distress. When you hear that this morning, what are you thinking?
It's not a surprise. You know, when you look at how this thing was playing out and the level of animosity that we're hearing about between the two of them, and I'm sure her lawyers were saying, all right, you have a whole arsenal here at your hands in terms of legally what you can do. And one is obviously they were trying to negotiate some sort of a settlement in terms of, as we said, in terms of the custody and financial situations. But I'm sure her lawyers were saying, look, we've got to cover all the bases. Right. And one of them is, you're saying he did this to you? Well, you know, we should have one of those lawsuits ready to go too in case this doesn't get worked out.
So that's more sort of standard legal operating procedure,
yeah,
possibly in
again, you're just looking at all the possibilities, and her lawyer is saying this is one of them.
So let's take a closer look now at some of these text messages were released, reportedly between the two. This is one from Mel Gibson, where he allegedly wrote, "I spent 2 hours with a therapist today and have regained some perspective. What I'm telling you now is I'm safe and would like to come by to make amends to you." It goes on to say, "I wasn't safe for you last night." Add this into everything else that we've seen. What does this do to a potential case? I think
it's an important part for the prosecution. A prosecutor is trying to put together a puzzle, taking all these different pieces and hoping that the picture ultimately, if they have enough evidence, will show that Mel Gibson indeed assaulted her. So there are all sorts of pieces of this puzzle. First is her saying what happened. That's all you have. That's that classic he said, she said. Is that enough? Oftentimes, no. You add to that the tapes that we've heard and the anger on those tapes. And if I'm the prosecutor, I'm saying, well, this is sounding like somebody who could have done what she said did. In addition, in the tape, at one point in time, you know, she says, "What kind of man are you? You know, hitting a woman holding a baby, knocking out 2 teeth." And his comment, according to the tape, is, "Well, you deserved it."
Right.
You know, again, if I'm the prosecutor, that's not a denial. That's awfully close to a confession and admission. The tapes, when you look at the text now and you have him saying, I wasn't safe for you last night, again, if you're the prosecutor, you're saying not a confession, but certainly not a denial, and awfully close to admitting that indeed he did what she says.
Quite an arsenal. There's also, though, these accusations of attempted extortion.
Yeah.
So that could come into play for the defense, obviously.
This is starting to sound like a law school final exam question. You know, where you throw in all of those scenarios and say, okay, now you figure it out. You know, you're hearing about the possibility of a civil lawsuit here. You're hearing about dissatisfaction with whatever that settlement or proposed settlement was in terms of how much money would change hands. And I'm sure on Mel Gibson's side, we've already heard some of it. There's suggestions here that saying there's more to this story than what you're seeing here, and more might be this idea of trying to get money from him in an inappropriate fashion.
We should point out this is still the investigation phase at this point. Real quickly for you, though, the fact that all of these things are being released or obtained by this one website, does that taint a case in either direction?
It's interesting. It sounds like it should, but probably not. You know, how that all got released might be the subject of some other legal problems. But if indeed it's him on the tape and it hasn't been doctored and a court would look at that and say, we're satisfied with this, it probably wouldn't interfere with that prosecution. That'll have to stand or fall on its own merits.
All right. Jack, thanks. Always good to have you with us.